Welcome to the Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra, and I'm so happy to have folks in the room, and I'm so happy to have you guys online with us. We are continuing on with our general summary. This general summary, basically, is walking through all of the previous sections, just kind of highlighting the bits and pieces that seem important as we go along. So we're on the middle of page 405, and everybody better have had their coffee, because we're going to start talking about the absolute and the relative. People are always like, what are you talking about? Okay, so the paradox that we're always dealing with in spirituality is the idea that there is a divine infinite reality, and then there is physical creation. And we seem to be part of both. And that can be very confusing, especially if we were raised in the West with the idea that we're a child of God or a creation of God, which separates us and puts us down here. Or in the East, where this is all illusion, it doesn't really matter. What we are is simply the one manifesting itself, and we're trying to get back to that. And the science of mind says actually both of those things are simultaneously true. Because we recognize that creation is part of the one. We don't separate out creation. We don't separate out the space-time continuum, that which we call the physical universe. We don't separate it out from that which we call the spiritual reality. This is actually spirit in a form in which we can see. This is simply life showing up in form, as opposed to just that impulse of life, which is, of course, formless. The idea of life is without form until something is created. Spirit is so. Here we go. Since we cannot contract the absolute, we shall have to expand the relative. What this means is we actually can't contract the infinite nature into us. That would be silly, because actually, as long as we're expressing in the space-time continuum, there is actually the limitation of form and space and time. But what we have to do is expand ourselves and into the recognition of who and what we really are. The infinite will not be or become less than itself. Right? The absolute infinite can't be anything less than absolute and infinite. In the Hindu tradition, it's called the infinite void from which all things come. Right? It's actually no thing. There's no form, only the potential for everything or anything. And it's not going to become any less than all of itself. And we are of its nature. We do not make our own being. All we can do is accept that the being which we are is some part of this divine, right? Some part of the one life. Some part of the one life is living as you, just as some part of the one life is living as each and every created thing, each and every created being, all of creation. Part, we could have a big esoteric conversation about the word part, but we won't go there. To know this is to overcome fear. Whether this fear is of lack, pain, sickness, or death, it is always the belief that there is something other than life, or that life withholds pleasure, peace, success, and heaven from us. So we want to start out with this idea of the absolute and the relative. The relative is everything or anything in the space-time continuum, because it's relative to other things in the space-time continuum. How do you know where something is located? Well, because it's related to something else. You look on the map and you say, oh, Los Angeles is located over here because it's related to the topography and the ocean, and you can say that's where it's located. And the same thing in terms of time. You can locate things in terms of time. And it's time and space that give everything its form. But the idea of life itself has no location. So one would ask, in the infinite spiritual realm, like, where's up? Doesn't make any sense. The question itself Makes no sense, right? Where's up? Which is why we think of the infinite life as eternal and infinite, because it's the absolute potential for all things. Love in its absolute state, joy in its absolute state, infinite bliss, infinite expression, right? It's the absolute potential. So think about the idea of potential, right? You have the potential, what shall we say? You have the potential of becoming a marathon runner. Willie goes, oh, maybe not so much, right? So that is the absolute coming into form. Willie's like, yeah, doesn't really interest me to become a marathon runner. So in that moment, the absolute potential of any one of us, every one of us becoming marathon runners, has been relativized to Willie's life experience. She's like, not even remotely interested, whereas other people are like, yeah, I'm going to run a half marathon, and then I'm going to run a marathon, and I'm going to be, I'm going to do that because, wow, that's really cool. And others are going, what? Why would you want to do that? Do you see? Every one of us actually has that potential. Whether we win or not is immaterial, right? But every one of us has the potential of running a marathon. But it's when we actualize it that it becomes relative to us and our life experience and our health and well-being and all the things we would have to do to actually become a marathon runner, all of those things, then that's all there's so many words we can say. That's the expression of the absolute, that's the concretizing of it, the actualizing of a potential. And the moment we do that, it starts having, it starts being related to things, including our own desire.
I started to say, I think I've been focused on the wrong thing. Maybe I should just focus on being a marathon runner, and everything else will take care of
itself. Could be, who knows, right? Right? So this becomes really critical for us to understand. Our job is to expand, to embrace as much of the absolute as possible. The absolute is already the potential for love and joy and growth and contribution and all of these things. It's already present. Our job is to expand into more of it, like maybe even entertain the notion of becoming a marathon runner, right? Or entertain the notion that we could have a healthy relationship, or entertain the notion that we could be well, or that we could be happy, right? Do you see, when we begin to entertain the possibilities, we're expanding ourselves into the absolute, and we're not trying to contract the absolute into our own finite experience. So this becomes really important as we go around. He talks, the next thing is about love. Love alone can overcome fear, which is a lovely statement, because the will of spirit, the will of life, can only be for more life, right? It can only be for more life. And we're going to get to the point here momentarily that in physicality, that more life is cyclical, right? It's forever taking form, releasing the form so it can take new form, because the infinite cannot fully express itself in just a form, right? It's constantly creating forms out of more and more and more of itself is being expressed. But spirit life can have no other will than more life. So how many of us grew up with something bad has happened and it's God's will? Must be God's will, right? Yeah, in New Thought in the Science of Mind, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The will of the infinite absolute must be only to express the potential into form. It can be nothing else. And so we have to either change our perspective that this cyclical change of forms is bad and wrong, or we have to change our perspective to embrace more of that life, to become more of the absolute. So at the top of page 46, he says something that I think is really important. Reminds us that since spirit is present in its entirety at all times and in all places, it follows that all of spirit is wherever we center our attention. So think of this absolute reality. It has no form of itself in its absolute. So therefore, in its totality, it's everywhere present. I like to think about laws when we get to this point, right? The law of mathematics isn't more present in a physics lab than it is right here, regardless of our ability or inability to do complex math problems. All of the laws of mathematics are fully 100% present all the time, everywhere, period, right? Do you see? There's no withhold. There's no place where there's anything keeping that from being available, keeping that from somebody using it. It's fully 100% available. Also, life is too. We would look at a plant, look at a mouse, look at a whale, look at a person. Do we say that there's more or less life in any one of those things? Right? They're all equally alive. They just have different forms, different expressions. And the space-time continuum limits the plant from moving, keeps the animal operating the way the animal operates, right? But life itself is fully present. This is what the ancients meant when they talked about omnipresence. Omnipresence, everywhere present. So the center of the universe, the center of the infinite, is present right where you are. Of course, that does not make you the center of the universe, because it's also present everywhere else, the center of the universe. It's present everywhere, right? And so all of it is available. All of it is active. Okay. So I want to skip down to the next paragraph because it follows, the thought process follows. Pure spirit exists at the center of all form. Of itself, it is formless, but it is ever giving birth to form. The forms come and go, but it, spirit, life, the infinite reality, the one, goes on forever. We are some part of it. If pure spirit is at the center of everything and is always responding to our thought, there is no limit to its manifestation for us except the limitations that we ourselves set. So let's back up. Spirit exists at the center of all forms. Of itself, it is formless, right? That's what we meant by the absolute. But it is ever giving birth to form. The forms come and go. That's why we have seasons and cycles and birth and death and the wave of life that we're all experiencing. But the absolute, the spiritual truth, is the constant, right? It's the constant. The infinite goes on forever. Okay. We're going to talk about causes and conditions here in a minute, because that's what this whole argument is coming up to. All right? So we have the absolute, which is formless. We have the relative, which is formed. And the relative is always, that's what it means, always related to something else. So my happiness is related to whether it's raining. My well-being is related to whether I'm taking care of myself. My abundance is related to my paycheck, right? Do you see? Then that's what it means to be in the relative. To be in the absolute means to recognize and to expand ourselves more fully into the abundance of the universe, the love of the universe, the well-being of the infinite. And we're seeking to expand ourselves into that and not just focus on the way things are related to each other. Do you see? Because when we're focused on the way things are related to each other, all we're doing is manipulating conditions. So here we get to the last paragraph on this page. Mind is the realm of causes. Okay, again, I would say that if this book was being written today, we would use the word consciousness. So let's just use that. Consciousness is the realm of causes. Conditions are in the realm of effects. Effects flow from causes and not from themselves. Something causes our experience. Something causes all of creation. Something causes the way that potential is actualized. Thought is the instrument of consciousness. New thoughts create new conditions. We must learn to think in the absolute. Okay, there's probably no more important statement, I think, in the entire book than that. We must learn to think in the absolute. Because what happens is, every time we think in the relative, we get the yeah, but. Well, I'm not abundant because, yeah, but my paycheck is only so much. Well, I'm not healthy because, well, yeah, but I have this inherited thing. Or, you know, I hurt myself and now it's not good. And, right, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. Right, the minute that we feel or hear the yeah, but, we can see that we have dropped out of the absolute back into our experience of the conditions of life. Now, this does not mean the conditions aren't real. We are actually experiencing them. But they are not causal. They're effects. So our job is to create new causes, to create a new cause, to set a new cause in motion in our own lives, in the life and all in the life of our family, our loved ones, our workplaces, the nation, humanity as a whole. We must learn to think in the absolute. This means to think independently of any given or experienced effect. My doctor gave me this diagnosis. That's a condition. Can we think in our own consciousness, hold to the absolute of wellness, of health and well-being? Is it work? Of course. Is it hard work? Yes. Spirituality is actually hard work. And it is a question of where, as we said before, where we are paying attention. Where are we landing our attention? This does not mean that when we're walking around the world, we don't do things that are healthy. And we don't, we take our medicine if the doctor says something, we have surgery if the doctor says something, we take our supplements, we eat well, we work on our lifestyle. But the cause is to do the work in the absolute. All of this is out picturing my well-being, which is the well-being of life itself. That's our work. Judge not according to appearances. This thought strikes away the shackles of bondage and finds a new cause at work. This is, I think, some of the most difficult and most important work that we do from a spiritual point of view. And it is clearly challenging. It's doubly challenging when we think about not just ourselves, but we think about those people that we're in relationship with. If they could just get it together, everything would be better, right? It's hard also to think about in terms of our culture and the things that are facing us in terms of the environment or the economy or the war or all of the situations and issues. But if we continually hold it and we're continually always only focusing on the condition, we're not bringing the absolute, we're not expanding our concept of what's possible to the potential of peace and well-being and sustainability and everyone, a world that works for everyone, right? That's the work we do in consciousness, which again doesn't mean that we're not doing work in the world. Absolutely, we're still doing work in the world, but that work in the world is an outpicturing of this place that we come to stand in the absolute. I call it spiritual double vision. I have a lot of friends, they have one eye near and one eye far, whether it's, with contact lenses or whether it's with corrective surgery. And one eye's for reading and one eye's for for far, for driving. right? We have to develop what I call spiritual double vision. One eye on the conditions and circumstances, the doingness of what's in front of us, guided by our vision. The other eye firmly fixed on the absolute truth, the potential, the possibility, the idea, which becomes the cause, right? And we're constantly managing that. We're constantly paying attention to which thing am I paying attention to. And if I always only focus on conditions, then I end up in the shell game. Well, if I do this and if I figure this out and I manage this and I happen, right? And we make ourselves crazy. When we have that one eye really focused on the absolute, well-being or love or abundance or beauty or wholeness, all of those, right? Any one of those, then that helps us see this absolute truth as the causal reality, and we begin to bring that into conditions. I hope you guys have had a lot of coffee. All right, so we're going to stop there. The absolute and the relative, causes and conditions. Ooh, man, it's great stuff. It's really important. We don't spend, I think, nearly enough time really trying to understand it. If you want some great reading about it, which will blow your mind, is read some of the Thomas Troward's work in Edinburgh lectures, and take any class that we teach that is about Thomas Troward. He is a master at really talking about and explaining these things. So we're going to stop here. We're going to say welcome back, Ryan. We're so happy to see you. And we're going to check in and see what's going on.
Well, good morning, everybody. And once again, thank you for joining us for the Science of Mind class. And yes, I am back. I was out exploring the Andes in Peru. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't doing that.
I wish that was true.
I was knocked out. I went through a surgery last week. Went very well.
Yay.
So I'm back up and running here and glad to be a part with all of you here today. And this is an interactive discussion. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. For everybody here in the room, I know you've missed me. So just please raise your hand for all those who miss me. Okay? I don't see anybody's hands raised. No, I'm just kidding. And for all of those who are here online, go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon. Let's see you hit the raise your hand icon. And that way, when you're ready to, you can be called on and I'll bring you here into the room. So that's how we're doing it, right? Those in the room, just raise your hand or slap your neighbor to raise their hand. Either way, it works fine for me. And for those who are here on Zoom, just hit the raise your hand icon and or put your questions and comments inside of the chat and I can bring those into the room. So those who are watching us on Facebook, you can put your questions and comments in the chat and I'll bring those into the room as well. And I just want to remind everybody that I keep the chats anonymous. So that way we can continue, I messed up on that, continue to have a safe space for our spiritual growth. So, Petra, we have a hand in the room.
We have a hand in the room. Yay.
Take me a second. I need your help. All right. There we go. Please say your name as well, too, so those who are online can hear you.
Good morning. I'm Shauna.
Good morning.
So I love this piece, but for me personally, this is such the intersection of absolute self-awareness and personal accountability. And I've only been back in Dallas for 2 weeks, and I was, on the road for 3 weeks. And one of the things that I became really aware of as I came back into my space and back into my discipline and back into, my meditation and my writing and is in the absence of carving out a lot of space for me to have time to be self-aware so that I can use that self-awareness to be really accountable for how I'm holding on to the seeds I'm planting and how I'm holding on to that absolute, that I can lose a lot of it. Yes. I mean, for me personally, if I'm in motion all the time and I'm not sitting back in self-awareness, I lose it. more than I am when I am, and it just is such a reminder as I come back that not doing and creating that open space for self-awareness is so critical for me
Yes.
to stay centered.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Shauna. And it's really true, right? It is our spiritual practices, our formal spiritual practices, that begin to give us that. I call it the double vision. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pause. Deepak Chopra calls it the gap. The ancients called it becoming the observer or the witness, right? It's that little bit of distance, because otherwise we're simply in our lives, and we're just in the conditions, and we're handling the, or not so well handling whatever is going on, and and sometimes I think people mistake that for the flow. And the flow really comes from being in that slightly detached a space where we can really become self-aware. Oh my God, I thought I was in the flow, and actually what I am is simply playing out a pattern, or simply doing what's next, right? And I'm not actually self-aware that I'm treating conditions like causes, which is what being on autopilot is. And being unconscious about what's going on is we're really treating conditions as if they were causal. And so you say something really important. This is why we focus on spiritual practice. This is why we have a Wednesday night meditation. This is why we teach all kinds of tools to get into that space, whether it's meditation or journaling or mindfulness, or the ways in which we attend to what we're paying attention to. And to make sure that we have the space to do that is critical. Yeah, thank you. Ryan, and then I have another one in the room.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ask Connie to join the conversation. Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning, everyone. Ooh, this is amazing. It's always amazing. I've started reading Eckhart Tolle, not reading, listening. I have his a set of DVDs that I listen to in the car on the power of now. And he talked about being in the present. Oh my goodness, it is so not awfully amazing, wonderfully amazing.
Yeah.
The other day I got all fumbled up with an order that I made online. I thought they were offering 2 free, but they were offering buy 2, get 2 free. So I thought they were all free, and that's ridiculous. I need to look a little deeper. But anyway, I ordered several and overdrew my bank account. So I had to call the bank and call the company that I ordered from, and it is straightened out now, but right after it happened, my mind was all fumbled up with problem. And it was time to go out for my walk out in magnificent nature. So I decided to do what Eckhart Tolle said and be in the moment.
Yes.
I let go of the what was going on, and I let, with the bank and all that, and I let go of the future, and I just chose to be in the moment and had a wonderful walk. And is that an example of what you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. That's a place to start, right? That's the place to start. You're in nature. You have a wonderful moment of being in the present, right? And then the shift is to, at that point, consciously move into the absolute, which is there is a solution to every problem, right? There can't not be, because it's an infinite reality. So there's so many ways things can be resolved and outpictured. And so we can start constructing a story in our minds. Well, I have to do this, and then that person has to do that, and then that has to happen, and this has to happen, and then this is the way it's going to be solved. And if anywhere along the line it doesn't quite work out that way, right? Then that can continue the flustered, oh my God, and we're all involved in it, and we get anxious or mad or whatever. But it's the taking a walk, it's going into spiritual practice, having a meditation, whatever it is, that allows us to come into the present moment and recognize right now in the present moment, none of those things are actually happening. Right now in the present moment is all possibility, all potential, all, and we are instantly catapulted into the absolute. We are catapulted into the absolute. And now we can do some, pay attention to the reality that, as I said, that there are all kinds of solutions in the one. There's not just the way that I figured it out, right? We might turn to the abundance of the universe. We might turn to how helpful people can be, because that's love made manifest, right? There's lots of different ways that we can, at that point, increase our awareness of the absolute, which must now become causal. But it starts with that moment where we come into the present moment, which is what causes us to withdraw from all the managing of conditions, because all those conditions happened either in the past, right, when you made the order and it wasn't quite right and blah blah blah, or in the future, oh my God, what's the bank going to do? Oh my God, what are they going to do? Oh my God, what am I going to do about my money? Right? So that's really where the conditions live. In this particular moment, coming into that full present moment is what opens the absolute, makes the absolute available to us. And then we have to expand into it. We have to expand in that possibility. So that's a great example. Thank you so much, Connie. I really appreciate it. Okay, we have a comment right here in the room.
Not a comment, a question. Hi, I'm John.
Hi, John.
And I've worked a job for 40 years. And jobs are very finite.
Uh-huh.
And there's lots of rules and things, structures built around them. So I decided at this juncture in my life that wouldn't it be great to just have a little business and just do that and do it on my own schedule but I've reached a point where I see the imperfection of my life. I see the perfection of the divine, and it's kind of got me like the deer in the headlights. I'm having trouble moving forward because I want what I do to be perfect, and it will never be perfect by definition.
Right.
And there are infinite possibilities and solutions, and I'm just so frozen because there's a lot of moving parts on this wagon, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do first. I have a coach, and they kind of say, do this first, do that first. But then when I go to do it, I'm still frozen. And I'm like, is there a way out of this kind of procrastination with this eye towards whatever I do isn't going to be perfect? So why even bother doing it?
Well, you've certainly articulated the problem brilliantly, and most people can't articulate the problem that brilliantly, right? And so the first thing I would do is I would invite you to expunge the word perfect from your vocabulary. Really, I think it's one of the ways in which we can do damage to ourselves, because the absolute is the potential, and anything in potential is perfect, right? The rose in potential is perfect, but the minute that it flowers, it's no longer perfect. Why? Because it's nibbled on by a bug, or it gets burnt by the sun, and the little leaf gets curled up. I mean, when we find a quote-unquote perfect rose, everybody goes wild. Why? Because they basically don't exist. Only the potential for the perfect rose exists. So I think what is meant in the science of mind by perfect is the expression of wholeness. That we're wholly alive and wholly engaged, and I mean WHOLLY, wholly present to it, and to rather than so. Oh, I have about 6 things to say. Let's see, where will we start? The absolute is not a form. It's not a form, right? So the first thing is perfection in the relative is always about a form. So when we're focusing on the absolute, what you want to focus on in terms of your business isn't the form, is it perfect? Did I do it perfectly? But is it moving me forward? Is it building the business? Is it reaching customers? Am I starting something that has some sense of moving this whole project forward, right? Because the end result ultimately isn't static, right? The end result is a flourishing business. Well, in a flourishing business, excuse my French, shit is going to happen, right? You're going to have right at the wrong time, you're going to have an employee quit. Right at the wrong time, you're going to have a supply chain issue. And what happens is focusing on the absolute reminds us that all of this is workable. There are solutions. There's ways in which life is seeking to unfold. And I'm a vehicle through which that is happening. So part of the absolute that I have my eye on is I'm trusting that intelligence, which is managing the universe, is living right here. So I am paying attention. I'm paying attention to the coaching I've drawn in. I'm paying attention to the wisdom of that. I'm paying attention to the intuition. I'm paying attention to the feedback. Boom, boom. Oh, well, okay, the feedback is, I thought that was a good idea. I thought that was the way to go. Not so much. Okay, great. But we think that just because we've decided to do something that now, and because we're spiritual, or we're very spiritual, now it's going to all unroll perfectly, right? So the more that we can give that up, and this, you hit it directly, head on. When I grew up, oh God, anything other than an A was utterly unacceptable, right? Even an A- had to have a big conversation about it. And so I had to really work on my best is good enough. It's my best, so it's good enough. And what if that's a C-? Okay, it's my best, it's good enough. What's not good enough is to not stay in the arena. That's what's not good enough. That's the only thing, as far as I'm concerned, in my own life, it's not good enough, is to not stay in the arena, right? So just keep at it. Just keep at it. Well, that didn't work. This is why we have inspiring things. This is why we know that, I have to go look it up. Somebody, I can't remember whether it's Edison, Thomas Edison or somebody else. I now know 999 ways not to make a light bulb. Edison, right? 999 ways not to make a light bulb. Remember that Abraham Lincoln lost 15 out of 16 elections. 15 out of 16 elections, starting with local county judge, lost. Local congressperson, lost. Local senator, lost. National, just up. And he just, what did he do? He just got bolder. He kept losing, so he went for a bigger job. He ran for a bigger thing. And then, and the only one that he won was President of the United States. Like, is that wild? That's wild. Right? And so if he would have assessed himself as imperfect, he would never have gone on to the next election. He would never have tried the next thing. And so this is why we also have inspiring thought. We pull out inspiring people, we remind ourselves. And so whatever you can do, the thing that's really amazing, John, is how utterly self-aware you are, right? So awareness is 50% of the battle. Great, but it's actually only 50% of the battle. The other 50% is now directly hitting that head on. So in the absolute, there must be other ways to do this. In the absolute, so another affirmation that I have used for years. I really don't have a clue as to what to do right now, but there is a wisdom and intelligence within me that does. So I'm going to sit here, and then I'm going to open my mouth. And I'm going to trust that what comes out of my mouth is exactly the wisdom and intelligence that's needed. Right? There's a wisdom and intelligence in the universe that's managing the universe, and it's right where I am. So if I have to make a decision, I'm going to trust that that wisdom and intelligence is going to make this decision right now. These are the kinds of empowering things that we do when we use our spiritual tools. It's a great question. It is a morass for a lot of people. So thank you. We have another hand out here. Dennis.
Richard's running.
Richard's running.
Run, Richard, run.
Good morning. I
Good
thought
morning.
that I might share these, and thanks, John, because of what he said. I have 2 affirmations that I have used for quite some time now that in my professional life have become statements. Somebody comes to, or even the voice in my head, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? There's always an answer. Just have to open up to it. Oh, we got this problem. No, it might be a challenge, but it's not a problem.
Beautiful.
And it's only a challenge because there's always an answer.
I love that. And what you're doing is helping yourself reframe things out of the condition being causal into reality being causal, right? That's what you're doing, and it's brilliant. So I'm a huge fan of affirmations. You can meditate, we can do our spiritual mind treatments, which I also really love, but I'm a huge fan of affirmations. And the reason is because they're an immediate thing I can grab a hold of, right? So the problem with most affirmations, when people write an affirmation, is they write a paragraph. And you can't remember a paragraph. You can't even remember 15 words. So a good affirmation is less than 10 words. And it's something that you can grab in the moment when you feel paralyzed, when you feel like you're overcome by something, when you feel like there's something going on, right? And that affirmation is shifting, reframing it, shifting your perspective from inside the condition to a causal view. That's what that affirmation is designed to do, is to move you into the causal view, to move you back into the place where you're trying to expand into the infinite. There's always a solution. That's expanding into the infinite, into the absolute. And these are so powerful and so helpful. And there are ways in which we can shift this double vision. Now, this doesn't mean that then we don't look at the challenge and go, this is really interesting, right? Oh, here's what we have to work with. This is what's going on, but shifting again, and there's always a solution, right? There's always another way to look at it. There's always something to do. And even if, another affirmation that I like to use is that even if I make a step and it doesn't take me where I thought it was going to take me, the universe has to take that into consideration to get me to the end result. It has to, because that's how the law works. So if my end result is a flourishing business, that's my end result, and I go over here and I take a step over this way because I thought my intuition was guiding me that way, or I just, by God, decided that was what we were supposed to do, right? And it turns out to be, I'm standing over there, and I'm like, okay, not looking so good right now, right? The universe still has to take into account that I'm standing over there to get to the end result as opposed to here. So that's why Thomas Troward says there's no such thing as a mistake. Of course, it might not have been the most direct line, but the universe still has to take that into account. The law still has to move us in the direction that we decided we were going. And so, yeah, this is great. So here's a lot of where the rubber meets the road. We don't want to leave our spirituality on the meditation cushion. We don't want to leave it in the classroom. We want to take it right into our business, right into our relationships, right into our lives, and apply it in a really powerful way, right? Which shifts us into alignment with spiritual truth. All right, so we're going to close today. We're continuing through the general summary. It's very much fun. I'm so happy that you've joined us. And we have some fabulous stuff coming up in our celebration today. Lots of classes going on. There's a fabulous class, Discover Who You Really Are, starting this week. The Wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my absolute favorites. So check it out. Check it out on our website. Love you very much. So happy to be here with you guys. Have a beautiful morning. Bye for now. Yay!